About 2 weeks ago, the Watermill Theatre sent out this email inviting all the people who'd attended performances of The Lord of the Rings: A Musical Tale to come and see the newly released trailer for the production, which hadn't been seen before during the run of the show. It's a glorious 90 seconds of footage that show a little peek at the wonderful actor-musicianship, stellar orchestrations, creative puppetry and projection, and fresh choreography, and it's a balm to the soul of someone who's still very much got the musical sort of right here in the forefront of the mind, desperately longing to return to the Shire. Now, I talked about the Watermill's Lord of the Rings before in more of a review context, a hurried get it out quick video that I posted after I saw the third preview, because I wanted to put out that this show is amazing, please go see it if you can kind of energy while the show was still running with tickets available. But now it's ended its run, the hobbits have long since packed up and left the Shire, and I've had enough time to A, mourn, and to B, really go over my thoughts and discuss all of the successes of the show with my friends. So this now isn't so much a review as it is a retrospective. I just want to highlight all of the reasons that this production succeeds, as well as redeems the Lord of the Rings musical from being sort of a West End flop in people's minds to a genuine theatrical triumph. And I also just want to put forward some theories about the potential future life of the production. Let's begin with the basics first. The Lord of the Rings: A Musical Tale, as is its official title, is a revival of the musical stage production The Lord of the Rings that debuted in Toronto in 2006 before transferring to the West End in 2007. While the original production was a massive scale spectacle with a cast of roughly 60, the 2023 revival at the Watermill Theatre is instead a small-scale, intimate production with a cast of 20, most of whom are actor-musicians who provide all of the music. It began previews on the 25th of July 2023, opened officially on the 1st of August, and closed on the 15th of October. When it came to this production, the musical's reputation did indeed sort of precede it. Most people with any awareness of it have probably heard that the West End version is described as an overly ambitious flop known for losing money. Audiences coming to see a new production would therefore be likely to come in with low expectations. And of course, there's no shortage of Lord of the Rings fans in the world who'd probably come even if they weren't expecting it to be much good, but we're about to be very pleasantly surprised, I expect. It probably helped too that this revival was not so much in the shadow of the Peter Jackson films, the third of which would have just been released 3 years before the original debut of the musical, rather than the 2 decades that have now passed since the premiere of Return of the King. Early on, there were articles about the piece pre-opening, with multiple members of the cast and creative saying that this new version would be a little different, as it would be that the story is told from the perspective of the hobbits. I remember this in particular kind of piquing my curiosity about the whole thing, and I theorised that maybe they'd emphasise this more as sort of like maybe a play within a play, and they might say like, here is our person who's playing Frodo, or something like that. I wondered if maybe they'd change the script to factor this in, but actually their solution was a bit simpler than that. While the original production featured one of those trailer-style, deep-voiced, disembodied narrators, at the Watermill, that narrating role is instead divided up between the ensemble members. Nuwan Hugh Pereira, who played Sam, explains this whole idea in an interview with Curtain Call magazine. Just like Amelie or The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, The Lord of the Rings is an actor-muso show. Do you think it helps to bring the life of the story and set the mood of the Shire? The way we set up this version is that it's a story told by the hobbits. It's the hobbits getting up and dressing up and portraying the story. It's almost like a group of players, and that really plays into the hobbit world, as they are folks who love music and love to play lots of instruments. And as much as there are the basic business world factors that undoubtedly contributed, it's this change in perspective, this new foundation that the entire production is based on, that I personally believe the Watermill's Lord of the Rings owes its success to sort of artistically. And by bringing everything down to a hobbit's level and aiming small, it achieves something much bigger. Let me explain. Now, the original production made great use of costuming, and also of choosing actors of significantly different heights to really create that sense of scale between peoples that we know from Middle-earth. The hobbits are shorter and padded out to be stouter than the humans, where Galadriel is always elevated to full majestic heights in incredibly high platform shoes. Yet, in the Watermill's production, the actor who plays Frodo is taller than the one that plays Aragorn. Is that weird? Is that taking us out of it to that? I say no. It is instead bringing us further in, because what we are seeing is hobbits performing everything. In emphasising this idea of the hobbit perspective, we are brought into a very specific world by, as Nuan described, something more like a group of players. We are not at Bilbo's actual birthday party, but the anniversary of an event that took place many, many years ago. After all, during the opening narration, the hobbits tell us of a time when the world was green and hobbits were numerous and prosperous. Mr. Bilbo Baggins threw a long-expected party. This lets us know that the story is all in the past and that what we're watching is hobbits playing all these characters. And so while, yes, Frodo and Sam and such are played by hobbits, equally, a hobbit is also playing Aragorn. A hobbit is playing Galadriel. In this manner, too, it sort of unlocked the cast from needing to look right. And in casting characters, then they were not limited by the expected race, or gender, or height. It keeps the performers on the same scale, too, as the audience. I said it in my review that when my group and I stepped into the gardens and we were welcomed in as though we too were hobbits, but there is also something to be said about the familiarity of the look of everything. After all, it is always easier to empathise with something closer to home. The costuming is much less elaborate. It's nowhere near on the scale of the original production. As noted in the programme, designer Simon Kenny pulled from various cultural dress and historical dress, grounding the visuals in something familiar, and certainly the costumes also look easier to move around in than the original versions. For example, I was not as nervous for Galadriel in her little slippers as I would have been if I was watching Laura Michelle Kelly walking around in her long skirts and stilt shoes, and it certainly allows for a better view of emotions when actors' faces aren't as obscured by helmets or otherworldly makeup or big elaborate hair, be it facial or otherwise. The choreography of everything is also rooted in that same sense of familiarity. While I've mentioned it in my previous review, after another watch, I feel even more impressed by it, and now each race of Middle-earth has a dance style, with the hobbits being, sort of more classic English folk dance based. The orcs all stomping and beating their chests like some kind of battle break dance, and the Lorien elves being particularly Bollywood inspired. What's this move with the many arms? That's very Bollywood, isn't it? The Rivendell elves bless the fellowship with these hand movements that I think are probably quite reminiscent of Bharatanatyam, Hastas or Mudras hand movements in Bollywood dance that symbolise themes like weather, animals or places. I should note that there are similar elf hand movements in the original production, but I wouldn't be surprised if the elf hand movements in the Watermill's version have their own specific meanings created by the choreographer or the director, as they are different from the West End's hand movements. There is just one particular bit of choreo from Star of Arendelle that I particularly adore, where the movements kind of correspond with the lyrics. I'm going to try and demonstrate it. I imagine this isn't a perfect recreation by any stretch. I think it goes, "Clothe us in your courage, your hope become our armour, your wisdom be a banner of light." I think they do that for light, I think. There's quite a bit of this similar idea too, where the dance moves correspond to the lyrics, but in more of a goofy way, just throughout, particularly with the bouncy Hobbit songs, like when Pippin fishes for a trout, which is another cast member's hands swimming around like a fish, or any of whatever's going on during the Cat and the Moon, where they're all talking about various animals and all that stuff. Then of course, the actor muso thing also helps to emphasise that idea that it's a story being told, a folk tale being recounted to us the way that the hobbits recount their folk tales, all gathered around a fire at the ivy bush. It's not presented in, like, this is really happening sort of a way. I'm sure there's, like, an actual theatre term for that, but I forget everything I learned in GCSE drama. The songs have always been my favourite part of the musical, with the West End album being one of the only ways to experience the show for a very long time, but they shine in a new way in this production. In Nuan's interview, he says how the actor musicianship really works in terms of building up the story from the beginning to the end, and there is an immediacy and groundedness that comes from being able to always see where the music is coming from rather than having it float out from the orchestra pit. It feels alive and works especially well considering that a number of the songs within the show are more diegetic, sort of further bringing you into the world. It's very diegetic, I suppose. It's great. And then, I suppose, also the scale of everything. I mentioned the scale of the performers, I suppose, but much of what people have had to say in reviews emphasises this idea that the story of The Lord of the Rings does not actually require a huge space, and a fantasy world can be created from a simple little wood-panelled stage. The Watermill's production used beautiful projections and puppetry, steering us away from the pop culture idea of Middle-earth that we have from the Peter Jackson movies, engaging audiences' imagination instead. At its core, the story is about the hobbits, about the small succeeding where the great could not, of people who love their home and do what they must to save it, and the love for that home is emphasised, and I felt it more because I suppose, after all, as audience members, like, we were just in the Shire hours ago playing ring toss with the same hobbits who are now battling it out on stage. And speaking of love, my gosh, the love for the source material I think can really be felt. It's clear that many of the cast members are genuine fans of the piece, and particular example of this being performers Peter Dukes and Sinead Saunders, who danced to Now and For Always at their wedding. So there's all of that, okay? Genius, the perspective, the scale, the actor musicians, the love, the combination of everything that transforms a piece into a folktale like we're watching a traditional Hobbit play, something that they do all the time. Stories we tell will cast their spell now and for always. There's a reason that they added that pre-prize at the beginning of the show. And speaking of the beginning, I know in my review video I talked about how special that bit of semi-immersiveness was, but it just felt all the specialer after I went for a second time, especially since I've now seen so many other audience members' video clips from it too, and seen how it is over and over. There's videos of hobbits dancing with children, and many of Fatty Bolger strolling through the picnic tables, nabbing himself like chips and sweets from audience members. And it really has been so wonderful being able to see so many audience videos of the Springle Ring, the Morris dancing inspired number at the start of the show. In this age of technology where we can know so much about all these musicals, but so many people are unable to go and see them, it's nice that, similarly to the musical Six and its You May Film the Mega Six policy, the Watermill's Lord of the Rings Springle Ring was similarly allowed to be filmed, I assume, because the Watermill's social media was always reposting any Instagram stories that featured it. Nowadays, social media is often the best way to get the word out about something. You know, virality is a big thing. And in allowing audiences to film and post stories of the Springle Ring, it's a nice way to show off a little bit of how wonderful it is in the Shire, and have all your Instagram followers think, wow, that looks like a lot of fun, I should go too. Of course, no production is perfect. Given that it's such a small cast, 20, and they also make up the band, if someone is out sick, it's much more production breaking than the usual fare. A lot of the performers are sort of irreplaceable, and if they're unable to play their character, they're also unable to play their instruments. Like, for example, when I saw the show for a second time, there was an understudy on to play Bilbo, and the performer, unfortunately, was not a harmonica player, so we did not get Bilbo's tear-jerking harmonica solo during Now and For Always. Not a massive blow in the grand scheme of things, especially if you didn't know that that was something that would happen, but a more notable instance was the 19th of August, when there were enough missing cast members that it resulted in the production being stripped back to a concert version instead. I've had help from the wonderful Spirit, who explained just how the night went down, with multiple understudies on, including one on book, fewer costume changes, and without dramatic set pieces or projection. For one night, cast members continued to be narrators, not just at the start, but throughout. This was mostly handled by Peter Dukes, who would drop character, turn to face the audience and say, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, there follows a sequence where..." such and such, and after his summary, they would play it through with music only. To quote Spirit here, he had such charisma and was getting huge laughs and sometimes cheers each time. It was palpable how much the audience felt we were in it with them and wanted to help them pull it off. That's brilliant. Though there were limited lighting cues and no projection, most of the choreography and blocking was still done, and at least one Nazgul puppet was still used. The doors were opened to reveal the Shelob puppet, though she was not puppeteered. The dance numbers were performed as normal, and Matthew Bugg performed all of his usual Gollum climbing around bits. To quote Spirit again, overall, the Frodo, Sam, Gollum parts were altered the least because no one was missing, so we've still got Louis's incredible movement work, which in my opinion shone even more without any projection. From what I can gather, it really seems like the concert version of the show was really sort of well received by all the people who went to see it, even though it was not performed exactly as intended. There must have been like a real energy about that night, and just sounds like it was something really special to have seen. Pretty cool. Another example is the performances on the 9th of September, when Aaron Sidwell's real-life partner Trisha Adele Turner stepped in to emergency cover the role of Arwen with script in hand, whilst onstage MD and particular superstar Sinead Saunders, who initially understudied the role of Galadriel after Georgia Louise fell ill early in the run and eventually took over permanently, handled the playing of the harp that would normally be the instrument of Aoife O'Dea, the production's Arwen. Turner, having only seen the show once, stepped into the role with 4 hours of rehearsal and the script in hand, and I've heard she was fantastic. She performed both the matinee and the evening. In both these instances, what stands out is the dedication by everyone involved, from performers to stage managers to front of house, to make sure that the show can go on. I imagine that given the extremely specialised skills each performer brings to the production, that it's probably a little harder to have someone on standby for every role or every instrument, but I do think that the cast probably would have benefited from a few more swings. So, what about a continued life for this production? After the success of the limited, come see it now, you won't want to miss it run, what comes next? Now that the revival has proven just how good it really is. That recent email from the Watermill Theatre to the Lord of the Rings' audience had a particular line of interest, a question that me and my Discord-dwelling virtual friends have all been asking each other. Will the Lord of the Rings return to the Watermill? Will it go on elsewhere? We're as eagerly awaiting news as you are. We were all distraught to get confirmation from the Watermill via email during sort of the last week of performances that at the time there was no cast album planned and that it was not in the agreement. A devastating blow. But this question in their latest email brings a glimmer of hope that I'm holding on to, and so too does this interview.
I am certain there's a future life for this production.
Yes, please. We would love to see. No, I'm joking. That's a bit beggy, isn't it?
I've even because I'm also a producer myself, so I've had people contacting me about the future life of this production. So I have absolutely no doubt this show will continue.
So, let us consider these potential outcomes, a return to the Watermill or going on elsewhere. As for returning to the Watermill, undoubtedly, the Lord of the Rings' success helped to boost the theatre a considerable bit after the loss of their Arts Council funding. I believe I read somewhere that around half of the visitors who came to see the Lord of the Rings were new, non-local audience members, whereas normally they rely on a lot of, loyal nearby theatregoers. After both of my visits to the Watermill with both different groups of friends, the post-show discussion did keep circling back to that feeling of being in the Shire, which is a sentiment that I've seen from a lot of other people's posts online. There really is something special and magical about the beautiful, lush, green setting of the Watermill Theatre with its gorgeous trees, plants, and beautiful clear water. It certainly wouldn't hurt to keep inviting audiences there, as it's absolutely well worth the trip, and it probably helps boost the sort of local tourism business as well, and there really is something to be said about it being such a small venue, allowing for such an intimate show. At a capacity of about 200 audience members, there's not really a bad view in the sense that you feel miles away from the action happening on stage, and the close proximity allows for actors to portray those quiet moments between characters better without being set adrift in a massive space like a West End stage. Then, a tour. I believe the Watermill is a theatre that does produce plays specifically for touring, and there have been other actor-musician Watermill productions that have gone on to tour the UK. Most recently, Macbeth, I think, has sort of just set off a few weeks ago, but I'm personally more familiar with Amelie, which started its run at the Watermill, went on tour in the summer of 2019, finishing with a run on the West End. And the performers also recorded an original London cast album, available on Spotify and wherever else you listen to music. The production was supposed to tour internationally, but I expect the events of 2020 were what caused that international tour to never happen. However, Amelie did later return and have a second West End run from May to September in 2021. While it had a completely different creative team, though two cast members in common with The Lord of the Rings, I prop this production up as an example of an extremely successful Watermill production touring while rocking an actor musician cast. And if anything like this were to happen for The Lord of the Rings, I would be over the moon. And of course, a tour makes being able to see a performance more accessible to those who can't travel down to Newbury. Like, I saw it twice only because it was so far away from me. If it was touring and there was like a week of shows, I'd probably go every night. While a tour would lose the outdoor, indoor, outdoor aspect unique to the Watermill space, that little bit of audience interaction could possibly still be preserved, as demonstrated by rainy days in the Shire, most notably the 22nd of September, Bilbo Baggins' actual birthday, which, as far as I can see, started as normal outdoors but quickly rained off. All the hobbits and audience members moving indoors, where, not wanting audiences to miss out on the usual party game fun, the games of ring toss simply went on indoors instead. They also ate birthday cake and sang the happy birthday song to Bilbo just because it was a particularly special day. I expect indoor lawn games might not fly in bigger venues around the UK, or if they've got, like, you know, particular health and safety rules in place. But I also think, like, why the heck not? You could still ring toss indoors anywhere on tour, let's have it. Besides, notable national treasures, Mischief Theatre, do audience interaction within the theatre all the time. At any goes wrong performance, you're likely to find the members of the Cornley Drama Society clambering over the rows of seating and arguing with each other in the aisles. So too could our little band of Hobbit players do a similar thing. Finally, as I record this, voting is open for the Broadway World UK West End Awards. I think they're open until the 31st of December. I don't know the level of prestige that they have, but the Watermill's Lord of the Rings has been nominated in most categories. So if you feel like voting for them, then the link is in the video description. The What's on Stage Awards are also open to nominations, but only until tomorrow, which is the 23rd of November, so it's likely that by the time I upload this, they will be closed. I'm going to try and get this out the same day that I'm recording it, so let's see. Lastly, I could not have made this video without a lot of help, so many thanks to Emerald for her endless knowledge of the musical and its various productions, as well as specific details on the 9th of September performances, to Spirit for giving me a breakdown of the concert performance of the 19th of August, and to Mary, Salah, Eleanor, Cece, Haz and Mo for helping me articulate this list of all of the production's successes. And then, of course, thank you to you for watching this video. If you've made it this far, thank you, and you will see me again if there is another one. Goodbye. If you're still watching, then I guess you consent to me now taking a few more minutes to rapid fire gush about all the things I just adore about this revival. I'm gonna try to not repeat myself too much from my review video. I'm just gonna be using this splendid artwork by the wonderful Liz the Frizz as a visual aid to help me point out all the performers. You can find all of Liz's artwork on Instagram at Liz the Frizz, and you can also find it in the Watermill's Lord of the Rings souvenir program. It's very good. For Lauren Akinmade, both visits he was the Hobbit me and my friends interacted with the most. He brought round the cup and ball game for us to try and fail at. He also refereed the ring toss game in which I lost to a worthy young opponent as Gimli. He is full of gravitas, humour and warmth, but also king of giving the absolute stink eye to Legolas before they become friends. Matthew Bugg, an icon who made me actually care and feel something for Smeagol, displays massive strength and agility. Northern King starts the show as Odo Proudfoot with the strongest and proudest northern accent of all time, and then transforms into Gollum slowly, bit by bit during Act 1, applying more and more of Gollum's makeup every time he goes off stage, so that by the time he makes his actual entrance as Gollum in Act 2, he's fully transformed and he is fantastic. Geraint Downing, a splendid young man with a strong neck and shoulders to support his cello the whole time. His Merry is a smart and very, very funny. There's a bit where he's like, did you see the way that Strider was looking at the Lady Arwen? That had me absolutely rolling. Peter Dukes, King of Charm, one of the most very welcoming of the hobbits as Fatty Bolger on the hunt for free food during every pre-show. Very deep, strong and masculine voice when he's playing Boromir, makes me cry very much during his death scene. He's really, really good. Rhys Corsten is a gentleman who I believe is Otho Sackville Baggins during the start, Bill Ferny later, and seamlessly goes from playing an elf to an Uruk-hai throughout. I thoroughly enjoy his Bill Ferny. There's a bit where he calls a hobbit ugly in a very northern way. I love that. Kelly Coughlin, a shining gem and a wonderful tour guide to the backstage workings of the Lord of the Rings at the Watermill during her Instagram takeover. She's one of the voices you hear belting up a storm all throughout, and her French horn rules. Amelia Gabriel, a multi-instrumental wonder who gets the biggest laughs every performance. Completely replaced Billy Boyd in my mind as the mental image of Pippin took as a character. What do you mean Pippin is usually a man? No, Pippin is Amelia Gabriel. Boom. Boom. Tom Giles, who plays both Saruman and Elrond. There has never been a cattier, sassier, camper version of Saruman, ever. No one has ever looked more menacing playing a flute before. Charlotte Grayson is a bright, charming Rosie who makes you feel, even with just her small moments of actually being a Rosie, when she's being Rosie, when she comes back in at the end, I'm like, tears are rolling down my face, love her. Nuwan Hugh Pereira brought something so completely new to the character of Samwise Gamgee, just as loyal and steadfast as he should be, but less deferential, I suppose. From the start, his Samwise knows who he is and where he stands, and has the strength in him to be the hero that Frodo needs. Elliot Mackenzie, the cast member who, when playing any instrument, appears to be having the absolute best time, does a fantastic impression of Tom Giles as Saruman.
Elliot, do you have an interval impression?
Yeah, so this is my Tom Giles as Saruman.
Okay.
Shire hobbits had the ring all along! Dance! That's my Tom Giles.
Excellent.
Peter Marinka, a solemn, serious Gandalf who indeed has that wizardy air about him. Very good. Bridget Lappin starts out as Lobelia Sackville Baggins, shines tremendously later on as Barliman Butterbur. She's got great moments during The Cat and the Moon, another performer who goes seamlessly from elf to Uruk-hai. Georgia Louise beautifully portrays a burdened Galadriel in strong contrast to her bright and carefree Hobbit character at the beginning. A fantastic voice. I ended up very lucky to have seen her, as she unfortunately took ill and left the role before the end of the run, so the recently released trailer is an extra special little record of her performance. Louis Maskell did so much to physicalise Frodo's struggle with the ring, and while yes, he's very good at playing a tormented guy, he also portrays well the cheerfulness and longing for adventure that Frodo had at the start. Aoife O'D, Arwen being a harpist is just so right. She has a lovely, ethereal singing voice, and the hand movements, the hell out of those elf hand movements, just really, really good. John O'Mahony, who plays both Bilbo and the Steward of Gondor. Extremely charming as Bilbo. Absolutely believe the love that he has for Frodo. That's his son. Great contrast to his performance as the Steward of Gondor. He switches from the West Country Shire accent to an Irish one, too. And ooh, he's got a lot of gravitas during his meeting with Aragorn. Ooh, the gravitas. Yazdan Kofori goes from a cheerful sweetie of a hobbit who seems to be the main Splat the Rat games master to a Legolas with cattiness levels comparable to Tom Giles' Saruman, at least until he starts examining his biases and makes real friends with Gimli. He is wonderful. Sinead Saunders, the MVP of the production in the truest sense, I imagine. The onstage MD, Saunders took over as Galadriel due to Georgia Louise's illness and rearranged the show on more than one occasion due to other performance absences. Absolute wonder. Aaron Sidwell, the only Aragorn for me anymore, perfectly portrays the kind of care, sweetness and loyalty that would make me want to follow someone anywhere or fall in love if I were an elven princess type. Great at giving a rousing speech. And the cast members who joined later, Patrick Bridgman, who eventually took over the role of Gandalf permanently, but who I happened to go see as understudy Bilbo. Just as splendid a Bilbo as O'Mahony, but I've heard that his Gandalf is particularly warm and jolly in a way that makes it seem believable that all the hobbits would like him that much. Ever think about how McKellen's Gandalf just seems so grumpy and you wonder, like, what do the hobbits even like about him? Anyway, Bridgman's Gandalf has been described as having Father Christmas vibes. Love that. And Zara Naeem, who joined the cast to fill in for Georgia Louise's ensemble track. Unfortunately, I did not get to see her in person, but I've seen the odd Springle Ring video clip now, and she seems to be a bright and expressive performer and very skilled to have picked up everything so quickly. Time to get even more hyper-specific. There is a moment during the pre-show when Matthew Bugg and Aaron Sidwell's Hobbit characters are like hugging and cuddling each other while they're listening to Bilbo talk. Love that, so adorable. Speaking of hugging the four main hobbits, can I just talk about the four main hobbits? Can I get into it? Can I just be a big fan for a moment? The four hobbits, Frodo and Sam, I suppose, in particular, they're really our main characters. Though I'd say it's thoroughly an ensemble piece. They are the heart of the production. They don't shine nearly so much as when they're all together, flinging their arms around each other, whether they're happy or sad or hurting or any of it. The hobbits will be hugging fiercely. And I love that. I don't know if I made it up, but there was a moment also during Moria where, like, Frodo's going over to talk to Gandalf and then he, like, crosses the stage. Did I make it up? He like, passed by Sam and he sat down next to Gandalf, but then he, like, touched Sam's foot. He was like, squeeze. I don't know, it was weird, but, like, it was cute. My heart. That post on Instagram as well, the one where it's a picture of Louis as Frodo from the, like, the farewell scene and he's looking at Sam and they captioned it, like, get you somebody who looks at you the way Frodo looks at Sam, and then it was like hashtag couple goals. Obsessed with that. Now, on my second visit, one of my dear friends reminded me that during the filming of the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies, Ian McKellen reminded Sean Astin that there would be fans looking out for the sweet interactions that they know and love from the books. I believe Louis and Nuwan gave the same sort of care to this. At the birthday party after Sam hands Bilbo the book, he tucks himself into Frodo's side and Frodo's always got his arm around his shoulders. They're the dearest of friends. They hold hands often, and my partner made sure to lean over so I didn't miss out on it by directing my attention to it while I was struggling to see past the taller gentleman sat directly in front of me. So too, there is not just this affection between hobbits, but between everyone, although again, I suppose they are all hobbits really, but there's tenderness between everyone. Strider hugs Sam tightly after the Fellowship lose Gandalf to the Balrog. There's a bit in Moria where Legolas is cuddling Sam and, like, rubbing his arm to try and make him warm. Oh my god, and Legolas and Gimli clasp each other's arms and Legolas moves to hold the back of Gimli's head. Oh, the emotions. Valarian, Yazdan and the creatives really said Gimli x Legolas shippers, you have rights. Okay, I think that's it now. I'm finished. I'm done. Thank you so much for watching this last part where I was absolutely unhinged. Cheers, bye.